a part of the SEO process. And there's going to be quite a few areas that we focused on, and some of this might be a bit familiar to what we've seen before. We've been doing quite a bit of keyword research and analysis, but we're also going to look at some areas of deep site crawling, some tool sets for link building, and then, of course, these last two portions here with boosting a site's speed and auditing a website's SEO. They're really interesting to look at, but because for our capstone projects and project work, we're kind of focusing on a bit more creational aspects. We don't have a website built just yet, but I will be showing these off because I believe they're helpful. And if you guys are ever doing them for your own website development, it could be useful. But this guy, number 3, is going to be the one we want to focus on to help with our link building for Capstone Part 3. So, as we mentioned earlier, we have a few categories that we're going to be looking through, and there's going to be a bunch of tools. And I want to kind of pick out in the interest of time. I don't want to go through each and every single one of them, but I will be picking kind of a main one from each of them and seeing how we go from there. The first category that we have here is involved with the keyword research and analysis. And some of these tools, we might have seen these before. We use some of the Google AdWord keywords and then the keyword tool.io. An interesting one here is called Suval. And Suval is free online. So if you just go to Google and you type in Suval inside of the search bar, it will bring you to this website of suval.com. Now, this looks a little weird looking at the start, but essentially what this is, it's a website that goes ahead and lists out all the keywords that you might be finding on the different search engines. So for our examples, today I'm going to be referencing that gelato ice cream restaurant in Chicago that we've been using quite a bit. And I'm going to just type in gelato into the Suval search bar. Excuse me, and you'll see that in every single category we have here, we get different keywords that we could use. So for Yahoo, we see that we have gelato versus ice cream, gelato strain, and gelato near me. And if we look through each of these, let's go to Google as well, which is up here. We see that gelato near me pops up as well. And there might be one more near me if we can find it. It might take a bit while, but essentially what's happening here is we can see all the different search engines and what the keywords, or excuse me, what the general search queries are for those specific items. And you can also go ahead and swap using these buttons down here. And Bing has a lot. So if I hit Suval after I hit, this looks a little weird, sorry about that. It will actually take you to the Bing search engine where you'll go ahead and see all the results there. So Suval is a really nice tool to use if you wanted to see all at once what the other search engines are looking for. And again, this if we do that dog walking example, dog walking and Suval, we'll see that there's a bunch of different search results here as well. So that's Suval. And there's two more here of WordStream and Ubersuggest. And each of these slides here goes a bit into more detailed. But Suval is a free-to-use product, and I believe that will be helpful for us because we don't need an account or anything. You could just type it in. And then, of course, you can figure out how you can generate some long tail terms. Remember, long tail terms were those keywords with 4 or 5 or more words on them, or just some normal keywords of size of 2 to 3 words. And of course, the most important thing of Suval is we can analyze the frequency of these keywords on the various search engines. Great. And with WordStream and Ubersuggest, these two bring ups as well. Apologies, these two websites. Ubersuggest is a bit similar to what we saw before. And the cool thing about Ubersuggest is, unlike Suval, you can actually go ahead and type in a domain. So we were using the Black Dog Gelato website quite a bit. So if I go ahead and type in the Black Dog Gelato website and we use Ubersuggest to look it up, we'll actually get a bunch of information about their organic keywords. And it's quite a bit because this is like a paid service as well, but we're using a free version of it. But we can see that we're getting lots of organic keywords. And if we keep scrolling down, we should get to portions down here where we have some SEO keywords, and we can see for this company what keywords that they're using, which is pretty useful. So you can see here, what is gelato has quite a bit of volume. Black Dog, their gelato name might be a bit better than the other ones. So sometimes you could see here that the title of their company is giving them a bit of a boost as well, and so forth. So this is another keyword tool. And I just want to double check with. I created a WordStream account, but it is actually messing up right now. So WordStream again will be similar to Suval and Ubersuggest. In general, that all three of these are useful for the research for your keywords. Does anyone have any questions or would like to see another run through of how to use these tools here? Do you guys want to see the next ones too? I know these tools are really exciting. Good. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, just let me know. Sure. Oh my! Did you have a question on the keyword research tools? Excuse me. Oh yes. Okay, sorry about that. Excellent. Okay, great. So if we go ahead and go to the next section here, we're going to look at some tools that are called deep site crawlers. And deep site crawlers are very interesting tools that we might not have seen before, but you might be familiar with the concept of what they're doing. The first one is called Screaming Frog. And Screaming Frog is actually a downloadable tool. There is, if you go to screamingfrog.com, a YouTube video that details the process of it. But what I want to do really quick is go ahead and kind of explain what the deep site crawling is. Deep site crawling essentially goes through the URLs of your websites and can identify some technical and architectural issues with your website. So again, so far with our companies and capstone projects, we've been doing this kind of like presentation of slides and stuff. But if you have an online, or excuse me, a live website and people might be connecting to it slowly, you can use these type of tools to determine these issues. So if I go ahead and pull up Screaming Frog here. I'm going to clear it really quick. And Screaming Frog, it looks like a lot right now, but essentially all this is at the very top, and this is a free unlicensed version of it, so you can download it if you would like. At the top, you enter in the URL of the website that you would like to see. So again, I'm using the Black Dog Gelato website. And if I hit start here, we can see that we get quite a bit of information in regards to the URL addresses. And there's a ton of stuff going on in the back end here, but I just want to show off a few things of why this might be useful. And again, the purpose of this is we're not researching keywords or what's useful here. We're trying to use this tool to figure out bottlenecks and what some issues might be in our website. So if we go to the very first tab up here in Eternal, we could see that we get kind of all the URL addresses that are being loaded whenever someone loads in this website. There's a bunch of other information here, but usually the status is the one that we want to look at. If it says okay, you're doing okay. And the indexability is what we talked about way back 3 weeks ago when we talked a bit about how robots can index our websites so that they can showcase them on the search result pages. So if you have a lot of indexable sites here, that's good too. And we can see if we scroll over, we get some titles. And then if we go to the meta description, these are the areas with, remember, meta description is kind of what pops up on the Google result page. So we could see from our website the meta descriptions that we get. And we also can see the meta keywords. And you can see here that sometimes we don't get a lot of meta keywords because, as we discussed a bit earlier, meta keywords aren't the most important one nowadays. But the H1 and the H2 tags are important as well because, remember, these are the ones that can be used as keywords. So if we see here in the H1 tags, we get a few keywords, catered, and we could see, let's see here. And as we can see, we could just go through a few of these, and we can see some older keywords as well. But you might have also seen that a few of these say non-indexable. So if it says non-indexable, sometimes the search result engine won't show them up. So these are just lots of different keywords that we could see pop up when we look at this website. Now, this is a very intense tool to use, and I like, as it looks like a lot at once, but as you go through it, there's lots of interesting things like the page speed that we have here and some of the sitemaps as well. But the other tool that we saw a part of our deep site crawling information was one called the Rob Hammond's SEO crawler. The deep crawl tool is similar to Screaming Frog, but I believe you have to pay a bit for it. Excuse me. And again, just as a reiteration, Screaming Frog helps you analyze like the page titles and the heading tags as we saw earlier, and then of course some images as well. But the Rob Hammond's SEO crawler is something a bit similar to Suval, where it helps showcase for free some items of your website. Go. So if you go ahead and you type in on Google Rob Hammond's SEO crawler and just search for it, the very first guy will pop up this very nice crawler that he's created. And the seed. Oh, yes, Fahim, question. Yeah, so Greg, this looks like a lot, right? So usually, if you're working on this on your other stuff, sometimes hiring. So you wouldn't need to hire a specialist. Usually, if you have a web developer or someone helping you with the website aspect of your business, they are expected to take care of kind of the SEO aspects as well, to the best of their ability. But usually, you could. There's lots of tools out there. Let me see here. WordPress is this online website builder that we've seen quite a bit. And if you go ahead and type in some aspects like WordPress SEO, a lot of these tools and plugins are kind of automated to help show you all these errors and stuff as well. But this is just with WordPress, so you might be using different items to build your websites. But for instance here, Yoast SEO will kind of tell you, hey, this page is taking too long to load. There's some errors here as well. So it kind of depends on your, on how you're building up your website. But usually, if you're hiring a web developer, they should take care of it. If you're doing it all on your own, though, you might want to reference kind of someone who's a bit more familiar with SEO just to see all of the aspects that might be damaging. But you it's perfectly okay for you to actually go about this yourself as well. I'll show you here with the seed URL in Rob Hammond's SEO crawler. If we see, if we crawl with this one, it will actually give us quite a bit of SEO issues as we saw here. And this is a bit more easier to read than the other ones. But we could see here, let's just say that I'm developing Black Dog Gelato and I'm not any let's just say that I'm not too familiar with SEO or anything. I could go ahead and see here, okay, well, in my code, it says I have an SEO issue of multiple H1 tags. So then I could go back into my code and see if I could fix that up. But sometimes these issues aren't the worst. And it seems like this is the only issue that's affecting Black Dog Gelato's website. So we might be having, or we might be a bit better in that regard. Than usual. But essentially, you could use these tools and stuff to find your errors and fix them up as you would like. But if this seems like a lot and you're a bit more focused on other items, I would say you could definitely hire people out there who are specialized in SEO to help with this. So does that help answer, Fahim? It's a bit long. Oh, shit. Okay, yeah, that's the best question, right? So let's see here. I believe I so with just the SEO rates and stuff. Again, with some people do web development that they kind of combine everything into one package where they like will design your website and do SEO and do everything for you, and maybe they do it with like a single price, like a $5,000 website, and we'll have all those aspects in it. You also have a few agencies. The agencies are going to run you for a bit more, but there's also consultants and freelancers. And around, I would say, anything above $40 an hour probably was your rate that you're looking at. But you could also, if you kind of do a bit of work on your own with SEO and try to fix it up yourself a bit before hiring these guys, that means it might reduce the amount of hours that they need to work on it and stuff as well. But usually it might be a bit expensive, and it's not something, it won't take ages to fix up. But as we saw from earlier, that the SEO needs to be updated and stuff, you might have to hire them couple times. But again, that's kind of dependent on how specific your business is, and there's a lot of variables in there that these consultants and stuff could see for your specific website. But usually it's not the worst expensive, but we can see here it's a bit pricey for it. Great. Yeah, no problem. Does anyone have other questions on the kind of deep crawling and what it's kind of doing, or some SEO fixing up as well? Cool. Well, now you guys know the rates you should be charging when you're the SEO experts here. And we could see that these websites and stuff as well, they're very helpful. And there's lots of, the idea here is that there's lots of different tools. So don't feel that you only need to rely on a single one to get the job done. Is that done? Great. And so that was the deep crawling. And again, we went through a lot there, but the general idea of these is to showcase certain reports to your website, making sure that there's nothing broken. And it's pretty much a way to check, like, okay, is my website actually doing okay? Great. So this is an interesting aspect that our capstone part, excuse me, part 3 is about as well. And it's about link building, removal, and analysis of these links that occur. There's a few tools here, such as Majestic SEO, Remove, and Open Site Explorer. And essentially what we're going to be doing is analyzing backlinks. Remember, backlinks are links from a different website that link to your website, indicating if we're getting spam links, how to build up our links, and broken link checking. So Majestic SEO, here. I'll pull this guy up here. If we go ahead and pull up Majestic SEO, and let's try to use our Black Dog Gelato on this guy, and we go ahead and search for it here. Of course, you would have to subscribe to these guys to get everything. But what we get here is quite a few backlinks and general like a report on what it looks like. So we have around 297 fresh backlinks. And again, a backlink is a link coming from a different website or a domain. So 297 for a website is really good. We could see here that the reports... Let's try to look for, great. We can see that we get kind of a timeline of the amount of backlinks that we're getting throughout the time here. And essentially, we also get a bit of a report on where exactly they're coming from. So we have a few redirects. We have a few image links. So essentially what that means is that if you click on an image, it will take you to the Black Dog website. And the majority of it is the text links. So this might be helpful. Let's just say that you're a photography group. You might want to have more backlinks on the images to show off your images and stuff like that as well. But of course, text links are probably going to be the majority of the links, and we'll get into that a bit later as to why that's the case. But essentially, this is a nice breakdown of how it all works there. And cool, another cool thing is the anchor text, and what this means is you can actually see the text that it is when you click on it. So all of these link to... the Black Dog website, but they all have a different version of what it looks like. So some websites have Black Dog Gelato, and if you click on it there, I'll have to upgrade if I click on it. But essentially what that's meaning is that it's going to link us to that website there. So this is a nice way to see what type of links you have, if it's healthy enough, if they're fresh, and so forth. Open Site Explorer, I had one here. Let me just double check this one. Open Site Explorer is a nice way to go ahead and track the inbound links to your sites. And you can use it for some comparison metrics as well. And an important one that I think is helpful is the broken links. Because remember, if you have a few broken links on your website, you might de-rank in the search result page ranking, because you want to make sure that you're healthy with it. So Moz.com, or let me just double check, this is the... Okay, they might have changed names around, but Moz.com is similar to the Open Link Explorer. And if you go ahead and just type in your URL and you get the link data. Oh, let's see here. Okay, so this one will need an account there. I believe there's one of them that didn't have it, but that's no big deal. We can also use, again, it's going to be a bit of a similar fashion to the previous one we saw, which is showing us some data about the links. Now, there's one more site that we saw earlier that I'm going to show off after we take a look at, let's see here, Remove. And again, I might need to make a few accounts for these guys, but the general Majestic SEO output that we saw there is going to be a bit similar to these two as well. And the one other site that I believe is helpful, and it's not listed here, but it is helpful for our purposes here, is a site called Open Link Profiler. So let me pull that up for us very quickly. And if you go ahead and you type in openlinkprofiler.org online, this is a very similar tool to remove to excuse me, Majestic SEO. And if you go ahead and you type in the website that you're looking for, you can go ahead and get quite a bit of backlink data that we see here. And the interesting one here is that we actually get the information about trusted links. Because remember, we have that area where if you are getting linked from websites that are a bit scammy or are fishy a bit, you might de-rank in your overall ranking as well because it's going to associate you with those more scammy websites. And again, the cool thing about this one is it gives us the links. You do have to pay to get the full link, but I could show in a bit during Capstone Part 3 how to avoid that. But essentially, you could see where they're linking to, the URL, and more information about it as well. Now, again, majority of these websites are kind of behind some paywalls and some more information like that. But for our purposes here, it's more than okay to just look at these links and see how it's operating. So those are link building sites, and there's a ton of them out there as well. So definitely feel free to look around. And in a few moments here, I'll try to recreate some accounts for those ones. But also feel free to take a look at the free ones that don't require an account. Now, site speed is something that we can't really focus on when we're kind of in the creational aspects where we don't have a website yet. But let's just say that we do have a website that we need to report on. You can use sites like GT metrics that are associated with requests and the size of the pages that we have. And we're also able to do some comparisons with GT metrics with your competition sites. So if I go ahead and type in, see if this works. Okay, good. This might take a little bit of time. Okay, we can leave that over on the side while it's loading. But essentially, with features on it as well, you can go ahead and check out how your site is loading quickly. And then, of course, because we're always competing against some other folks, we want to make sure that the competition is good. And the connection throttling and browser-based performance is similar to what we saw in the SEO, Screaming Frog SEO, where we went ahead and checked out if anything is broken, if everything is working so well, and so forth. Great. So for our Black Dog Gelato website, we went ahead and we got a B, which isn't that bad. It's pretty good. And we saw that the performance and the structure is pretty much up there. And we can see here that we're getting a few issues that we get back here. So the highest impact issue here is enormous network payloads. And what that means is that if we have quite a bit of big images, so we could see here that we have around, what is that going to be, around 6 megabytes of data that needs to be loaded at the very start of our website. People who might not have the best internet or might not be able to download stuff quickly is going to load that up. And this is mostly images. 13 megabytes, well, it is enormous because it's saying it there. But again, that can help us. If you reduce the size of these, it might reduce the size of this one as well, and so forth. And then, of course, there's some more items down here. Make sure that you encode images because optimized and encoded images load faster. So this is a really nice website to see the layout of your website, to see which issues are occurring and how we could potentially fix them as well. Dareboost is going to be similar to GT metrics. Let me see. I just want to double check if I need to make an account with this one. Great. Okay, so this one will load too. And we can kind of see it's in a similar way of GT metrics. And while that is loading, I just want to go over the report a tiny bit more. You can also get some history information about this too. There's some videos, well, the video is this ad there, but the structure is another important one. And essentially, the structure is going to tell you some issues that they found. And you can see here, if you reduce unused JavaScript, you can go ahead and defer loading scripts and stuff like that. And now, if you're not too familiar with coding or anything, this might seem like a lot, but you can check how well your web developers are doing and stuff on your website as well. If these are a bit higher, you can definitely double check the code. But because these are lower, it's not that huge of a deal. But definitely for the high and medium low impacts, that's something to take into account here. And again, the metrics to measure these are always a bit different. We could see here that we got a bit of a lower score than the one on GT metrics. The improvements have 14. We have quite a few successes, but we have a few issues as well. And even though that the rating is a bit different, what do you guys see here? We get kind of the identical report here that we have files with a size greater than 1 megabyte. So as a general rule of thumb, make sure that the website that you're creating has images that are a bit lower so that people can load into them faster. And again, this is all kind of a domino effect. If you have stuff that loads faster, it will make more people stay on the websites, and it will make Google rank your website a bit higher. That improves your SEO, and then that improves the quality of your website and how many people can see it. So again, these website fixes are very important, and making sure, again, size is something that occurs a bit after you finish up everything, but this isn't like a crazy intense thing to fix it. All you would need to do is just download the image, optimize it a bit using some online tools, and re-upload it, and then that issue is fixed. So this is a really nice way to check your website, figure out if it's running okay, and so forth. And again, these two tools are essentially what the site speed is all about, checking out how fast your site is running and if there's any improvements for it as well. Great. Does anyone have any questions about using these site speed tools or anything along those lines? And again, perfect. Okay. And just let me know if you have any. Now, this portion here at the end, content building and optimization. Oh, great. Great question, right? So I'm giving you a tremendous amount of tools, and so when do we run these? I would say for GT metrics, in my experience, these tools such as Open Link Profiler, where we saw the backlinks, and the Screaming Frog, where we checked out how our website is running, and the last one, which is that's for later, and the GT metrics tool. Those tools are really effective for a site that's already been posted and uploaded online. So when you're creating your keywords and figuring out the content of your site, you don't need to use these tools right away because it's you don't have a website posted just yet. But the other tools, such as the the keyword tools that we look through, and I would say the backlink tools as well are important to use. But for instance, I would say Suval, this type of tool here that we're using, these keyword tools, you're probably going to want to use that tool quite a bit just to make sure that you're up to date with your keywords, that you're understanding the trends that are going on and so forth. The other tools, again, are more so reliant on having a published website. But if you have a published website, and I would say take it kind of by ear. If your website's running really well and people aren't complaining too much, it's better to be safe than sorry, so you can run it. You don't need to run this every single day to check if it's doing okay. But if you see some issues in your performance or just in people coming in and stuff, then you might want to make it a bit less often, or excuse me, you don't want to use this as much then. Again, take it by ear. If your website's a bit lower end on the ranking list, try to use some Dare Boost and measurement quality tools. Other than that, though, I would see. I'll go to the list after this just to double check that. But again, make sure that you use those keywords a bit more often than the other ones. Great. So with that being said, the last portion of these tools here. Yes, right. So I can look up some checklists for you, there. There's quite a bit that goes into web development and the creation of your website there to avoid mistakes. But if you're doing, I would say if you're, I've done web development before, like from scratch, so it's a bit different when you're doing it that way. If you're a bit new to web development and you haven't done as in-depth work like that, I would say that a good way to avoid these is by using websites like Weebly or WordPress here. WordPress, again, is a bit more advanced, but WordPress is essentially a website builder that gives you a bit more power. But essentially, a lot of these websites and stuff have these tools and items built in. So if you're building a website, it will give you a theme with WordPress. And again, I'm not trying to advertise for these guys or anything. It's the same with Weebly, but they will have plugins like SEO. Let's see here. We saw one that was Yoast SEO. This one's used by a ton of people, and these plugins and stuff help figure out, as you can see here, automated technical SEO improvements, advanced sitemaps that we saw, and some better branding for us. So we can see that there's a lot of plugins out there now that kind of automate this process for us so that we can avoid doing all this. And you don't need to just kind of start a text file and start coding in HTML anymore. There's quite a few things that just kind of get you up and running right away. Weebly is a nice drag and drop builder. WordPress is becoming a drag and drop builder, and the other one is I just added, apologies. Wix, there it is. Wix is the one that's another website builder. I've used all of these; they're all really nice. Their SEO too is not the best. Great. So Yoast is actually really good from my experience with using it. There's quite a bit of automation in there. Sometimes, though, the downside I found with Wix and some of these is that they hide a bit of quite a bit from us, so that we can't use everything that we would like in our website. And so sometimes going with WordPress, I would say WordPress might be a very good one to use, just because it kind of gives you everything for you to use with just yearly costs there. But again, there's lots of checklists. Hiring SEO analysts and companies to do it as well will be helpful. But again, a general checklist is, as we saw with DM150 and 160, to pick your brand, pick your target audience, and then continue to build off from there. Remember that you have a scope that you want to focus on. And a general example of that would be if I'm selling gelato in Chicago, my SEO and everything that I'm branding towards should be always built towards gelato in Chicago, rather than like global or anything, just to make sure that we can kind of narrow it down to my audience. And again, that is changing based on the company that you're selling. But with SEO as well, I would say from the websites and the information that we saw here with the rankings and stuff like that as well, and the improvements to be made, make sure that you keep the size of images on your website low. That's a very nice guideline to have. And make sure that your content isn't a ton at once. And to continue from there is always important, to make sure that you're kind of up to date. But again, this stuff, it's a lot to do all the time. So just keeping a general idea of that's always important, and looking for more different sites. If Wix isn't going good for you, maybe branching out to Weebly or WordPress is a route to take as well. Yeah, and I'm sure there's a ton of them out there. I'll try to find a few here. There's definitely more guidelines in that too. But let me very quickly, for the interest of time, where was I? The last portion here with the content building and optimization that we saw. This just lists out a bit of Grammarly. I've used quite a bit if you guys are familiar with it. It's just a way to help with our grammar and essentially making it work here. So if I go to Grammarly here, Grammarly, there's a Chrome extension to it, but I just wanted to show off what the little URL is, or excuse me, little design is here. You could see here that Grammarly is a way to go ahead and just make the content that you're making or typing inside of your browser a bit better. And it helps out quite a bit if you're just kind of chipping away at it. It will automatically go ahead and make it a bit more better for us. We could also, what I always like doing, it's a bit of an old school method too, but you are also more than welcome to just go ahead and inside of the Word document, this might not be the best one either, but you can always use the spell checking tools inside of Word if you would like. Grammarly is a great one to use. It's very nice, and there's an extension in Chrome for it. A few more of these. Oops, that might be the end there. But all of these guys here, such as Siteliner and Hootsuite, are helpful. And the reason why they're more helpful than just the Word document for the spell checking is that they can factor in some SEO and some other content to help with optimization there. Now, we just went through a lot. Oopsie-daisy. Let me scroll back up here. And again, for the content building, the general idea with these items here is to just make sure that we are creating content that factors in our factors in our keywords and is effectively written. The last item here are site audits. And again, these tools that we're looking at now are a bit later on down the road where you have your website up. But site audits, again, is another way that you could go ahead and check out if your site is running okay, if there's any bottlenecks or any issues like that as well. And if we go ahead and check out site checkup, and we go ahead and check out the URL of Black Dog Gelato a lot. Good. Yeah, Grammarly is actually really nice because it has the extensions inside of it that can automatically update your text that you're writing. So Grammarly, I think, is always a solid one to use. Great. With SEO site checkup as well, we see here that there's quite a few issues. And interestingly enough, this site checkup doesn't talk about that one issue the other guys did with the larger PNG files. But again, these are just as important. We could see here we have a few URLs that aren't friendly. They're going to be hidden, of course, the fix is hidden. But essentially, a few image alt tests. This is something important for websites. If you have a website that isn't designed to be compliant for people who might have disabilities and might have vision disabilities, that's actually a bit of an issue in SEO. And what this means is that if you can't see the website, either the image doesn't load or you physically cannot see the website, there is alt text that this says alt text, alt text in there that is going to go ahead and show up so that someone can understand what the image is even without seeing it. And there's just tons of information here as well, but it's nice enough. These audit sites are very helpful for helping out with it there. And we could see here that we're getting the heading tags test. Our website contains too many H1 tags, and that was similar to the Screaming Frog guy, if we remember there. Or, Rob Hammond's SEO checker. We had quite a few header tags that caused a few issues in our website. But again, we could consider using less than 5 H1 tags and then focus on the H2 tags a bit more is interesting as well. And of course, we get that robots.txt file we talked about too. So these audit sites are great to checking what some issues are with our website and what improvements are as well. Great. And WooRank as well. WooRank's another way to check some factors that are going to be helpful for our SEO testing. Let's double check. Okay, so that one is behind an account creation as well, but the other one there, site auditor or site checkup, is helpful for just checking out at a very bare bones how your site is running and some improvements that could be made. Great. So as a little throwback to Mai's question there with which tools should we be using, or like kind of a double checklist. All of these are important, but lots of these focus on websites that have been published, that are secure and are up in the area already. So feel free, 2 to 5, I would say, is very important when you're I would say even when you're building your website, if it's live, to keep checking how it's working and stuff, if you're going in the right direction. But the conduct keyword research and analysis tools, I would say you want to use those quite a bit frequently, just because those are going to be very useful to make sure that your brand is properly created, that you're on the straight and narrow with your content, and that you're following a specific path to keep up with the brand that you're making and targeting the correct audience. I could definitely provide some more extra information there in regards to these here. Great. So does anyone have any questions or concerns on these utilities and tool sets that we covered here in Chapter 10? Sure. Yeah, so that's a great question. So if you're working with like a certain agency, they might use their own like either product or might have a specific one. We saw here there's a bunch of different areas inside of our tool sets, but you might have seen a bit of overlap between them. For instance, some of the deep site crawlers posted some information about issues in the website. Let me get Rob Hammond really quick, because that was the example I was looking for. So if we crawl the website of Black Dog Gelato, we see that even inside of this deep crawler that is just looking at links, we get SEO issues already. And the multiple H1 tags was an issue that came up in our auditing a website's SEO as well. So with these tools, if you like SpyFu and a few of these really big ones as well, kind of are a one in whole package. So if you're hiring, I would say if you're hiring kind of more of a freelancer, they probably have an account with one or two of these SEO tools and just go from there. If you're doing this yourself, you're probably going to jump around between a few of them, just because if you don't want to pay for any of them, you can jump between some of the suggestions and fixes that a few different ones have. And I would say for a company, they either have their own SEO analysis tool or they rely on one of the larger ones. Because if we just go ahead and Google some, so like this biggest one is Moz.com. And Moz.com is going to have like a ton of information about SEO for you. So they have the keyword explorers, link explorers, and some other domains as well. My online presence too. And a general idea here that we need to take into account and to why we need to keep researching keywords as well is that the internet is constantly like advancing at a rapid rate. So these tools are also going to be advancing with it. So some tools might be a bit more holistic now where they only need to rely on one. And so really, if you're hiring someone, they might just use Moz.com as their keyword analysis too. But like the purpose of showing you all of these is to show off the different factors of it and to actually how to use them and understand what's popping up from them. But yeah, does that help answer the question for you? Perfect. Great. Does anyone have any other questions or concerns? Here.